Hello there and welcome to Stamp Along with Rubbernecker. This is Preeti. Today I'm using this Darling Dahlia stamp set which released last week for the new springtime release, and I am going to stamp that using Memento Tuxedo black ink because I am going to use some Copic markers. I'm going to color this dahlia like the picture above there on the right side that you can see. So I'm looking at that is my reference picture, and I'm going to create this flower kind of something similar to that. What I'm doing is I'm really using very thin lines to draw in for the flower. If you look closely to the reference image, you can see that these flowers have some thin variations on each of those petals, like ridges on each of those petals, and that's exactly what I'm trying to emulate using my Copic markers. So I'm starting off with the darker shade, which is R89 in this case, and I'm just going to add it to the darkest place where I think would be a shadow, and you can see how dark those shadow areas are in the flower. And then I'm going to blend that using RV19, and then blend RV19 using RV17. Again, I'm doing the same flicking motion. I'm not blending them, I'm flicking into the colors to create those ridges on the petals. And then I'm going to blend that using RV63, and then I'm going to blend the final color using RV10. Now when you bring the lighter colors, make sure that you don't go deeper into the dark shade, because the lighter color do have a lot of alcohol in it that will remove your darker shade. It'll fade it out, so try not to go too much into the dark shade, but flick it from the tip of the last color, and that should take care of it. That should give you a good color variation. And I've done the same thing for all the petals all around this flower. As I said, I'm just keeping the reference image there on the right, the dahlia image. It's such a beautiful dahlia, and I'm just trying to create that again. And then for the center, you can see the center is quite lighter, so in order to do that, all I did is I added a flick of the RV17. So I started off with RV17, I kept away R89 and R19. I did not use the darker shade, but just the mid tone, and then flick the RV17 with 63 and RV10. And I'm going to come back to the center later, but in sorry about that, my throat is acting up a little bit. But I want to add a bit more of darkness or depth in the shadow areas. Again, as I mentioned, the reference image, the darker part of the flower is really dark. You can always go back and do a second coat of your Copic markers, and that should work as well. But I kind of like to add color pencil, so I'm just taking this really deep maroonish or deep reddish color pencil, not really red, it's more burgundy, and I'm going to go just in the darker area, and you can see how the flower center starts popping off. And then I'm going to use a white pencil, and I'm going to go on the tips of these petals to create a lighter shade. So if you have, let's say you are heavy handed and you don't get really light towards the edge of the petals, like you can see the dahlia in the reference image is quite light on the edges, on the tip of the petal. So just taking a white pencil and going over that should take care of that. And now for the center of the, I just forgot a few petals, I'm just going that. For the center of the flower, I see that there's a little bit of green and yellow showing, so I'm just adding some YG25 and YG11, and I'm going to add a little bit of like a yellowish green color pencil and some yellow pencil over it to create that center, and that pretty much completed the flower. For the leaves itself, I kept it very simple, so I went with the darker shade in the center of the leaf, which is in my case G28, and again I'm also adding that color in the shadow areas where there would be a cast shadow created by another leaf or a petal in front of it or above it. And then I'm going to blend that using YG17 and then YG23 And then I'm going to complete that using YG11, and that pretty much will complete the leaf. So keeping the leaf simple is a good way, because your flower has a lot of variation and depth to it, and you don't want to take away from all the coloring that you have done on the leaf. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the bud inside the leaf. I'm just starting off with the darkest, which is R89, and then ending with the smallest. And then I've taken this gel pen and I've just flicked a few lines on the bud to create a bit of the variation. And I repeated the same method for the second leaf, or this leaf as well here. You can see that I've added a few more veins using a darker green, and you can easily do that. Just sometimes it's nice to manipulate your images to fit your theme. So I just went ahead and added a few more vein lines using my dark green, and I did exactly the same kind of blending that I did on the other leaf. I just added all the other shades, and then I just went with a little bit of green pencil to add some yellow green, actually, to add some yellow tint to the leaf, and also with a darker blue pencil in the darkest parts of the leaf. And now I'm just taking this coordinating die, and I'm going to die cut the flower and the bud with the leaf. The bud with the leaf die actually is just cuts the bud and the leaf portion of that image. It does not cut the stem, and I'll show you. It's very easy to take care of that. And here I've gone ahead and die cut them. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a scissor here, and I'm going to detach it from that cardstock, and I'm just going to follow along a white, leaving a thin line, and then connecting it to where that die cut stops. And you can see how easily it separates, and there you have your die cut leaf and bud. And then for the leaves, there are no dies in this set for the leaves, and it's very easy to fussy cut the leaf. So I just left a white border around the leaf and I just cut it. I have gone ahead and pre-colored and die cut multiple flowers, and now I have to create some frames. So I've taken a rectangle die, two rectangle dies, and I've cut them on a white cardstock to create this frame. Now I'm going to adhere these flowers to create the floral frame onto this frame. Now, when you're adhering, please don't do what I did here. Do not add glue to your flower, but add glue only to the frame. The flower did get attached to, and they did get adhered to the copy paper underneath, and then I had to wiggle around and remove it, which I could easily. And later on I did do that, but don't do that. Don't make that mistake that I made. Just add glue to the frame and attach your flowers to the frame. And we'll go to the next step, and you will see that this will be quite sturdy at the end. And then I'm just going around with all the flowers and buds that I have colored exactly the way I showed you, and the leaves. And here you can see that the frame is put together. You can always use any shape. It doesn't have to be rectangle. It could be square, it could be round, it could be oval, whatever floats your boat. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to add some foam adhesive, foam tape, behind this entire panel, and that will adhere all the flowers to each other and also make it sturdy. It's a lot of foam that I've added, and I'm going to take a gray cardstock, or card panel actually, to assemble this this floral frame. And I want to add a sentiment to this panel, this gray panel. So I've not adhered the floral frame yet. So I'm just placing it there to make sure that I have centered my sentiment. And then I'm going to stamp the sentiment friend using Versamark ink. And I'm going to emboss that using some white embossing powder. And then you can see here, but the white is not really showing very well on my cardstock, on my gray cardstock. So there's an easy fix for that. I just added some drop shadow to these letters. So I've used BV20, and I have gone ahead and added a drop shadow to the right side of each letter and under the word, and that makes the letter or the word friend pop up. So that's an easy fix as well. I could have die cut the, I mean, I could have stamped this onto a black cardstock with white embossing, but I didn't want that. I wanted the front to be directly onto my panel. So this is an easy fix. Just add a drop shadow, and this ink will fade out a little. It looks dark here, but it will fade out as it dries, and you can see how the front pops up right now with that drop shadow. And I'm just going to remove the foam, the paper backing from the foam adhesive, and I'm adding some liquid adhesive as well so that I get some wiggle time. And I'm going to adhere that to the gray panel. And now I have some extra leaves and buds left. Now just time to fill in that frame some more. So now I can tuck it in under the flowers and under the what you call the uh, under the frame, just to fill the panel, the frame a bit more. And then that's what I'm doing. So I just few more left, so I'm just finishing it off. And once I was done adhering these additional leaves, I just kept that aside, and I want to do the sentiment, and I've already gone ahead and stamped and embossed it onto a black cardstock, and I'm going to place that sentiment right under friend. And once I was done with that, I'm going to add a few gemstones. I like to place my gemstones first on my cardstock so I know where exactly they should be, and then I go ahead and add glue under each of those gemstones, so that way I know where exactly I want those gems to be. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to keep aside. This is a top folding or side folding 5x7 note card in white, and I want to add some more sentiment in the inside of this card. And I had some additional flowers left from when I had colored, and some leaves and buds left. So I'm just trying to figure out how to place that. So I'm just placing that in the corner of the inside of this cardstock, this white cardstock. This is a landscape card design, so that's why the card is opened in that way. And I'm just adding the flowers to the corner, and I'm going to add an additional sentiment. The sentiment in this stamp set is just beautiful. It is so meaningful, and I mean, I really really love the sentiments in this stamp set. So I'm just adding this panel to my Misty. I had to fold it in order to fit that into my Misty, so I folded it backward, and I'm going to stamp this additional sentiment inside using VersaFine black ink. And I'm also going to add another small sentiment, and that's "You are loved" right underneath it. I I wasn't sure, but then eventually I decided I wanted it right underneath it. So I went ahead and stamped it as well. Because I had done this with VersaFine, it's a pigment ink, I wanted to make sure that the ink is completely dry, and I heat set that. And then I am going to adhere that on the floral panel on top of the white note card, and I'm going to adhere this directly using some liquid adhesive. Now there will be flowers hanging on the edges. You can easily snip it off using your scissors. I am planning to put this in a large envelope, so those flowers will be absolutely fine, they wouldn't matter. And that pretty much completed this card. And here is a closer look of the flowers and the inside of that card. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give us a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to our channel, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.